I wanted to talk to you today about the difficulties of being blonde in Japan. Being blonde in Japan comes with challenges you'd never expect. I was recently on a consultation call with Phil and Jane, and they're planning to travel around Japan in a car, so they booked a couple of consultations with me to talk about how they're going to do this. During this time, one of the questions came up was, is it difficult to be a blonde in Japan? Now, I totally misunderstood this question. I started talking about hairdressers and things like that, but what she actually meant was living as a blonde person in Japan. What might be the difficulties out in public? Is it difficult because people are looking at me, or one thing and another? So there's two parts to this video. The first part is living as a person who is blonde in Japan. The other one is doing your hair in Japan. Getting my hair done in Japan has been a real challenge for me. I've got a couple of workarounds that I'm going to share with you that you could also implement if you're planning to live here long term. And if you're someone like me and you're in the countryside, it's not so easy to find a salon that can work with blonde hair or differently colored hair. So going back to when I first arrived in Japan when I was 18, it was back in 1992, and I had really long white blonde hair, and that's because I'd been living in Cairns, Australia, and I was outside all day and I just naturally had gotten quite light in my hair color. When I first arrived, I did notice back in Takamatsu there weren't many foreigners around. So back in the 90s, it wasn't such a big tourist scene to come to Japan, and Japanese people weren't really used to looking at foreigners, especially foreigners with really long blonde hair. I did get a couple of comments that I picked up on, and it was things like Sailor Moon, and one person actually said to me, I can't look in your eyes because I'm afraid I'm going to see your brain because your eyes are blue and they're like windows into your skull or something like that. It was a strange comment, but I remember thinking, oh, is that how people think when they look at my eyes? They're going to see right through into my brain. So there was a few unusual comments that were coming my way, and being an 18-year-old, I was so self-conscious, and I was really self-conscious of my hair. I was self-conscious of being stared at, and I did find it a little bit overwhelming, especially when people were touching my hair. So that happened a lot when I was 18. I would be sitting on a bus and I could feel someone playing with my hair behind me. It was mostly an older lady touching my hair and going, oh, kirei desu ne. At the time, it was sort of unwanted attention because I was a little bit shy as well. Fast forward to Japan today, nothing like that. Totally different situation. I mean, Japan is booming with tourists at the moment, and you can see foreigners every day of the week walking around in town, especially if you're in places like Tokyo, Osaka, or Kyoto. Japanese people don't even give you a second look if you've got blonde hair. It's just part of the norm now. In my town in Wakayama, there still aren't that many foreigners, but something funny does happen to me a lot here, and I wanted to share it with you. All of the Japanese people that I've gotten to know since I've been living here always comment to me when they see me, I saw you at Seria, or I saw you at the lights, or I saw you at the supermarket, I saw you at the cafe. So I do stand out still, but not in that weird, like, oh, look at that, that's a foreigner. It's not like that. It's like they recognize me because I'm living in a small town, and people who know me always spot me out and about. Also, my car is very distinguishable, so people will say they saw me driving by and things like that. So now I'm not so self-conscious. Nobody really stares or looks at me, and I've been treated very normally when I go to the shops or when I'm talking to someone. I would say 90% of the time when I'm at the shops, I get treated just like every other person in town. So I don't think there are any issues with being blonde in Japan as far as how I'm treated. Another big change is a change within myself, because I'm not that 18-year-old anymore, and I no longer have that same sort of self-conscious feeling that I had back then when I used to be worried about people looking at me and staring at me. Now I don't think anyone looks and stares at me, but I also don't feel any element of being self-conscious about how I look, or the fact that I look a bit different to 90% of the people in Japan. There is always a little bit of an assumption that I don't speak Japanese when I first meet someone, but usually once I start speaking Japanese, everyone relaxes and we just go back to being normal again. I'm so grateful when I am treated just like every other person. I mean, I know I'm not ever going to be Japanese, and my goal is just to be able to live amongst the Japanese and be the best foreigner in Japan that I can be. Before I came to Japan this time round, I did actually dye my hair brown because I was thinking it might be a little bit easier to maintain than blonde hair. So let's get on to part 2 of the video. I have a couple of disaster stories that happened to my hair when I first arrived in Wakayama. About 8 weeks after arriving, I needed to touch up my hair color because most of the brown coloring that I put in before I left home had washed out. When I was in Australia, I used to get half a head of foils done, and I used to get a mixture of highlights and lowlights. So if you're used to blonde hair, you'll know that the highlights put light sections in your hair to lighten it up, and then the lowlights bring it back down again so it looks more like a natural hair color, and it's a lot easier for your regrowth if you've got the 2 tones. The salon explained they can't do half a head of foils, but they did recommend an overall hair color. So I looked at their hair color choices and we came up with the color of a sort of blondie beige color, which is sort of a creamy beige, which is the color I like to be. I definitely didn't want to be brassy or anything like that. When they took the hair color off my hair, I was absolutely shocked because I was a bright gold color. And I said to the lady, is the next stage the toner? We're going to tone this gold down. And she said, no, this is the color. This is the color. Congratulations. I was like, no, I don't want to be brassy gold. And she said, it's a lovely color of kimpatsu. And it was nothing like the sample color that they'd shown me on the swatch. So what had happened was that was going to be great if you had dark Japanese hair, but because my hair was already light, it just took all of the gold tones and I ended up really orangey and brassy. So it was such a shock, and they didn't have any toner that would tone out that color. So I raced straight to the supermarket and I bought some purple shampoo and I tried to tone it back myself. After that disaster, about 6 weeks later, most of that color I'd been able to get out with the purple shampoo, and I went to a different salon that had advertised that they do, well, they showed a picture that they do foils. So I went in there and they don't do like half a head of foils. They charged 2,000 yen for one foil. So that was going to add up really expensive because half a head, I mean, I don't know how many foils would be in half a head, but well over 20 or 30 foils. So that was just not going to be economically possible. So she suggested we'll do like 6 foils to get you started and just lighten up, you know, your roots section. And so she did 6 foils and I ended up looking like a zebra with some big thick stripes. So the foils that she put in weren't actually nice thin pieces, they were really thick stripes. So that was my second disaster. And then my third disaster was trying to get those stripes then toned by a different hairdresser because the stripes had come out bright white and because she'd left the bleach on for so long. And so then I tried to get those foils toned down, and the toning color ended up a slight greeny tinge because I was insisting that I really don't want to be brassy, so I had some greeny tinge stripes after that. So I decided the only way forward is just going to be to do my own hair, and it's probably going to save me a bit of money as well. So what I'm about to tell you, please do not do this at home. It's very risky to do your own hair, and I didn't mind experimenting on myself, but I'd hate anyone to follow what I did and have a disaster. But what I did is I bought one of those caps off Amazon with all the holes in it that you get a crochet hook and you pull hair through. And I started giving myself very fine, thin highlights just through the top of my hair using one of the products, the bleaching products that you can buy on the shelves here in Japan. After that, I'd usually leave it for a couple of days, and then the next thing I wanted to do was tone through the top of my head, because I do throw a lot of brassy colors. And the other problem I have is I've started to go gray. So I'm going gray just in these top section here, and a small bit of gray just coming through. Now I don't mind the gray, actually it works really well in my favor because it makes it look like I've got natural highlights. So what I do is to tone down this gray and tone down any brassiness is I buy this product which is called Ash Greige. Greige, a combination between grey and beige, and that's the perfect base color that I actually need for my hair. I don't know the exact terminology for any of this, but I only use half of sort of the activator because my goal isn't to bleach my hair lighter, it's just to deposit some color like a toner. So I only use half of the activator, and then I use the full amount of the color sachet, mix it all up together. And I'm a bit casual with where I put this product because I mainly want to put it on the areas where I have a lot of grey, and then just sporadically throughout my hair on parts that I think are throwing a bit too much gold tone. And I want to be careful because I don't want to turn out like with a greeny tinge, because some of the ash colors leave you with a bit of a greeny tinge. So I'm watching very carefully as the color in my hair starts to change, and as soon as I see it's just picked up a little bit of that color, I know that's enough to tone down the brassiness, and I quickly wash it out. So I've dried my hair, and this is what it looks like as the finished product. And you can see compared to the grey before, it's a lot better. It's covered up really well, and also I've lost a lot of that brassiness. And today you can still see, I mean, I've got pretty good lighting in here. Those grey colours have now turned into more of a blonde highlight look. So this has been the best option for me. That pack of greyish hair colouring, that cost me about 500 yen. The bleach cost me about 1,000 yen. And I can pretty much do it whenever I like. I don't have to make an appointment at the salon. Now, don't get me wrong, I do love going to the salon, and I love the salon experience in Japan. It's so lovely with the head massages and everything like that. So I'm still going to a Japanese hairdresser to get my hair trimmed, but I'm just going to avoid all of the color scenarios for now. I think doing my own color is working out perfectly fine. I think getting your hair done in Japan is a common problem that a lot of foreigners might experience. I'm just wondering if you have any thoughts on the matter. Have you ever done your hair yourself? Have you ever had any hair disasters? I'd love to hear about it in the comments. I think you're going to find it's a lot different if you're living somewhere in Tokyo where you've got a lot of international hairdressers and hairdressers that are used to working with lots of different types of hair. But here in the countryside, I just haven't been able to find my hairdresser yet. If you know of someone, please let me know. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll talk to you again next week. See ya. Bye.